He thought it was over. After the encounter, after the men in black, after the memory lapses and the half-remembered dreams, he believed the worst had passed. But sometimes, the real story begins only when the noise fades and silence takes its place. That's when the watching began. At first, it was subtle. A photograph he didn't remember taking where, just behind his shoulder, a faint silhouette stood in the background, blurred yet unmistakable. Then came the reflections, glimpses in mirrors where he stood alone, yet wasn't. Lights flickered, shadows lingered longer than they should. He told himself it was stress, the residue of trauma. But deep down, something colder whispered otherwise. These weren't agents. They didn't wear suits, didn't arrive in cars, didn't carry neuralizers or ask questions. They had no faces, no features, no movement. They didn't belong to any intelligence agency or alien species he could name. They simply existed like the background radiation of the universe, present, patient, and completely outside the rules he thought governed the world. He began waking up at exactly 3:03 a.m. each night. No sound woke him. No nightmare. Just the crushing certainty that something was watching him from the corner of the room, where the darkness never quite faded. Sometimes, the TV screen would flicker on, static humming low, and in that haze he swore he saw eyes. Not glowing. Just open. Then came the night he found himself standing in the middle of a field, barefoot, breathless, with a glowing stone clenched in his hand and no memory of how he got there. No car tracks. No footprints. Just wind cold and wordless brushing past him as if trying to speak. And though no voice rang out, the message was clear, carved into the silence like a scar: you were never supposed to see them. He doesn't remember walking home. Only the feeling that followed, an invisible thread pulled tight between him and something vast, ancient, and unseen. Now, the walls of his home seem thinner. Mirrors feel deeper. And every night, without fail, he wakes at the same minute, drawn not by fear, but by the sense that he's being studied. Some are watched because they know too much. But others are watched simply because they saw. It began with a hum. Not the kind that slips in through windows or crawls from the walls. This hum came from inside. Deep, steady, almost melodic. Ethan first heard it in his sleep, an echo behind his dreams, weaving between memories that didn't belong to him. Then it followed him into waking hours. He thought it was tinnitus. Stress. Residual trauma from the erased weeks. But then his phone, dead, turned off, buzzed on the kitchen counter. No notification. Just a tone. Low, oscillating, unnatural. He placed it against his ear. Nothing. Later that night, his radio alarm clock blinked 3:03 a.m., then powered on by itself. The same hum. But now it was layered with fragments of a voice, fragmented, distorted, speaking in a cadence he couldn't place. Not quite human. Not quite digital. Something between. He recorded it, analyzed it, slowed it down, reversed it, and on the sixth night, it spoke clearly. You heard us, in 1977. Ethan wasn't even born in 1977. He dove into archives, declassified signals, forgotten SETI logs. And there it was, the wow signal. Recorded on August 15, 1977, at Ohio State University. A 72-second narrowband transmission from deep space. No known origin. No repetition. Just a spike in the static. The signal he was hearing matched it. Exactly. Someone or something was rebroadcasting it. Not to the world. Just to him. The next morning, Ethan found a cassette tape slipped beneath his door. No label. Just static, then the hum, then a voice, his voice saying words he didn't remember speaking. They can't erase this. It's built into you now. He started seeing numbers in his sleep. Symbols. Patterns he couldn't forget, even if he tried. They burned behind his eyelids like after images. One of them matched a diagram from an old NASA SETI memo scrapped before publication. A geometric glyph they couldn't interpret. He drew it on his wall. That's when they came. Not the men in black. Something else. Tall, narrow, translucent in the right light, like they were only half in this world. Their heads tilted as they stood in his hallway, as if listening not to him, but through him. Their faces shimmered, never holding a shape long enough for memory to capture. And then, they were gone. No doors opened. No footsteps. Just silence. He told no one. But the next day, a black car idled outside his building. No logos. No license plate. Just presence. The window rolled down. A familiar voice. You're not just a witness anymore, Ethan. You're a relay. The car drove off without waiting for a response. And Ethan understood. Whatever the others were, whoever had been sending the signal since 1977, they weren't just watching. They were reaching. Using him. Tuning through his mind like a radio. He wasn't just hearing them now. He was becoming the frequency. It arrived in a manila envelope. No return address. No postage stamp. Just left at Ethan's door sometime in the middle of the night. Inside an unmarked hard drive, a post-it note with 4 words scribbled in shaky handwriting: "They lied to you. Watch." The drive hummed to life when he plugged it in. No folders. No labels. Just a single looping video file named /echo_77.mov. It began with film grain. Footage in black and white, handheld, erratic, unstable. A desert plain. Somewhere remote. Off-screen voices breathing heavy, panicked. The camera turns sharply to catch a blur in the sky. Not a craft. Not a drone. Something organic in motion, shifting, glowing, warping in the heat. It pulses once, then disappears. Next, a cut to night vision. The same figure now hovering silently above a ranch. Ethan recognized the silhouette. Skinwalker Ranch, Utah. A place buried under decades of redacted reports and whispered threats. The figure shifts again, this time forming what looks like a human arm. Not reaching. Mimicking. Like it was learning. The footage ends abruptly. Then, another clip, a cockpit recording. U.S. Navy pilots, frantic. Coordinates flash on screen: USS Nimitz 2004. Ethan freezes. The infamous tic-tac encounter. But this version is longer than the public leak. Much longer. One pilot whispers, "It's reacting to us. It knows." Then silence. And the craft, a white blur, jumps from horizon to sky in less than a second. As the file ends, the screen goes black. A line of text types itself across the center: "They never stopped watching." That night, Ethan wakes up to a knock at the door. No one there. But taped to the wall outside, a Polaroid of himself, taken that morning. In the background, the same translucent figure from his hallway, faint, nearly invisible. Someone had been watching him now. The next day, he's followed. Not by agents. Not by suits. By people who look too normal: same height, same gait, same face. Subtle, nearly perfect copies. They don't blink. They don't speak. They just mirror. And every time Ethan turns to confront one, they vanish into the crowd. Later, he checks the hard drive again. Now, a new folder appears: /black_channel/. Inside, documents. Voice logs. Internal MIB files. redacted names. But he recognizes a voice. The same voice from the car window in part 1. There are forces we don't brief new recruits on. They don't ask for information. They overwrite it. Memory, matter, identity. We monitor them. We do not interfere. But someone in Sector X has made contact. Unauthorized. His name is Ethan. Suddenly, Ethan understands why they haven't tried to erase him again. They can't. He's crossed a threshold, seen something they didn't predict. And now, he's not just a liability. He's a signal they didn't authorize. And the question isn't if the others will come for him. The question is, why haven't they already? The coordinates weren't on any map. They came hidden in metadata buried inside the last image Ethan received from the /black_channel folder. A thermal snapshot of a forest clearing, overlaid with glyphs he had seen before in dreams, on walls, and now, here. He drove out before dawn, miles past the last paved road, deep into rural nowhere. Fog curled low over the hills like it had been waiting for him. His GPS blinked out miles before the destination, but the car kept moving, almost pulled. Something was guiding him, even if he didn't know what. And then there it was. A gate with no fence. A wooden arch that marked nothing. Beyond it, an open field and a house that didn't look abandoned but didn't look lived in either. Its windows were dim, as if light inside had been paused. No birds. No sound. Just the soft hum that had followed Ethan for days, growing louder the closer he stepped. Inside, the house smelled of ash and copper. Dust hung in the air but never settled. And on the walls drawings. Hundreds of them. Scratched into the plaster. Pinned with rusted nails. Charcoal, ink, blood. Most were symbols. Spirals. Eyes. Geometries that hurt to look at. But in the center of one wall, there was something else. A sketch of a man. Him. Drawn in frantic lines, over and over. Same coat. Same scar on the brow. One image showed him holding something, a device shaped like a tetrahedron, glowing faintly. Another showed him asleep, surrounded by shadows. Then, the floor creaked behind him. Ethan turned. An old man stood there, barefoot, covered in paint and dust, his eyes milky and unfocused. But when he spoke, his voice was clear. "You came back." Ethan didn't know how to answer. The man walked past him, gently touching one of the drawings. "You left it here last time," he said. the key. He reached into a drawer and pulled out an object wrapped in cloth, the tetrahedron from the sketch. Ethan had never seen it before. And yet, it felt familiar. As he held it, the house shifted. Light bent. The sound of the hum turned into a pattern, rhythmic, almost musical. Time felt uneven, slipping. Ethan stepped outside. The field was no longer there. Instead, charred trees, blackened ground, ash raining like snow. A memory? A future? He couldn't tell. And above, hovering just behind the clouds, something vast. Silent. A hexagonal shape blocking the stars. No movement. No sound. But Ethan's skin burned, like radiation under invisible light. He thought of the cash landrum case, the woman scorched by light from a hovering object, left with burns no hospital could explain. This felt the same. The air pulsed. He dropped the tetrahedron and in an instant, the world reset. He was standing at the edge of the clearing. No house. No gate. No sign of any path. Only tire tracks, his own, leading into nothing. His phone blinked. A new message. No number. Just 4 words. You're out of time. They always said the men in black were the ones watching. But what Ethan had seen, what he now remembered, told another story. After the clearing disappeared, after the house blinked out of time, Ethan drove without knowing where to go. He didn't sleep. Didn't speak. The hum was gone now, replaced by a silence that felt unnatural. It was as if even the static had stepped away to watch what came next. Then, 3 nights later, the signal returned. Not as a sound, but as an image appearing on every screen in his apartment. His laptop. His TV. Even his digital clock. A symbol. A perfect circle, broken at 4 points, with a line bisecting it, something between a map and a warning. Beneath it, a message: Project Serpo, observer compromised. He hadn't heard of Serpo in years. Most dismissed it as conspiracy fiction, a supposed exchange program between the US government and an alien race. But now, it was real. And he had been marked. Later that day, his lights flickered. A wall in his apartment, just drywall, faded to reveal something else behind it, a window. Not to the outside, but to a room he'd never seen. Metal walls. Tables. A man, seated, surrounded by monitors, watching dozens of feeds. One of the screens showed Ethan. The man didn't see him at first. Then he looked up and smiled. not with recognition, but resignation. "You weren't supposed to find this," the man said, his voice coming through no speaker Ethan could see. "But you're already outside the loop, aren't you?" Ethan tried to speak. He couldn't. The air was thick, distorted. Time stuttered. The room flickered. 1 second it was there, the next it wasn't. Only the whisper remained, "They watch us, too." Ethan started to find files embedded in places they didn't belong. Weather apps showing flight logs. Calendar events linked to planetary alignments. A GPS that, when zoomed all the way out, revealed stars where cities should be. The watchers, those who'd tracked him, erased him, warned him they weren't the top of the pyramid. They were watched, too. And whoever the others were, they didn't just observe. They recorded. Layer over layer. Memory over memory. As if reality itself was being replayed. Ethan found a mirror in his apartment that wasn't his. Behind the glass another version of him, blinking out of sync, expression wrong. He covered it with a sheet. But it kept whispering. "You remember things that never happened. You forget things still happening now. You were never meant to choose." It wasn't madness. It was bleed through the cost of seeing too much. The barrier between the observer and the observed had thinned. Ethan no longer watched from the outside. He was part of the loop. The watchers had failed. And the others? They had started watching the watchers. He wasn't supposed to remember. And yet, he did. The days after the signal were quiet. Unnaturally quiet. The kind of silence that made clocks tick louder, lights flicker slower, shadows stretch longer. Ethan stopped dreaming. Or maybe, he simply no longer woke up. Then one morning, the knock came. Not on the door. On the window. Ethan lived on the 12th floor. He opened the blinds. No one there. But taped to the glass another Polaroid. This time, it showed a man in a black suit, standing behind him in the elevator. A frame Ethan had never seen. A moment he didn't remember. But it was him. That evening, he received the file. Not digital. Physical. Hand-delivered by a courier with no name tag, no expression. A single folder, black, unmarked. Inside, a contract. No signature line. No salary. Just one sentence, "You've already agreed." The phone rang as soon as he opened it. A voice he recognized, though he'd never met the speaker face to face. "We don't erase everyone. Some people, we keep. You saw what wasn't meant to be seen. That makes you a risk. But also, a key. You'll come in through the back. No ceremony. No welcome. You won't wear the suit unless they ask. You'll ask questions we're trained to ignore. That's why we need you. There was no address. No badge. No official induction. Just a place. A diner off Highway 41. Middle of nowhere. 2 booths. One waitress who never speaks. And a man in gray, older, tired eyes waiting at the far table with a folder and a look that said, "Don't sit unless you're sure." Ethan sat. He didn't shake hands. Didn't speak. Just opened the folder. Inside, images. Unclassified. Undeniable. Beings that mimicked but never truly became human. Craft that bent gravity like fabric. Events with timestamps that didn't match any clock on Earth. And beneath them all, names. Places. Coordinates. One stood out: Kumburgaz, Turkey, 2007. Ethan remembered the footage: blurry, metallic, filmed by a night guard over multiple nights. The shape in the sky. The figures within. Not cloaked. Not hiding. Watching. But watching who? That's when he saw the last page. A mirror. Not a photo. A surface. He looked into it. For a moment, it wasn't him. The reflection blinked late. Tilted wrong. Wore the suit he hadn't yet received. And then just like that it aligned. Ethan stepped out of the diner, folder in hand, coat darker than before. He didn't feel different. But the air did. Less static. More expectation. From that day on, they didn't follow him. Because he wasn't a target anymore. He was one of them. But not entirely. They didn't control him. Didn't issue commands. They trusted him. That was their mistake. Because deep down, Ethan wasn't here to obey. He was here to find out what even they were afraid to ask. There is a protocol, unwritten, unspoken, shared in glances, in silence, in things not deleted but quietly buried. And now, Ethan knows where to dig. He was never erased. Never truly recruited. Not one of them. Not entirely apart. Ethan still walks the line between silence and signal. But some files were never deleted. Some questions were never supposed to be asked. And some watchers were never meant to be seen. There is a protocol they never wrote down. And Ethan? He's already started breaking it. The others are still watching. And now, you are too. If you've made it this far, you're already part of the signal. What other stories do you think they buried? Drop your theory in the comments below before they erase it. And if you're ready for the next encounter, subscribe before they turn off the lights.